with Tony Taylor, the black man who will tell you what you will almost never hear anybody else say. This is a very intelligent black man, spends half his life in Europe because he can't stand the socialism in America anymore. Go to Tony Taylor.
Prejudice against them. And I say, well, that's a good answer, but that's not the correct answer. The correct answer is the government provides federal subsidies to these judges based on how much money they take off of men in child support. Now, what that is that's U.S. Code 42, Title 4D, subsection 666. When you approach the politicians on the federal level and you say to them, you know, what are you going to do about these federal subsidies? They always tell you that men's civil rights is a state issue. It's not a state issue. I'll repeat, U.S. Code, that's Federal Code 42, Title 4D, subsection 666, which we affectionately refer to as the beast. And what that is it's federal law, and so therefore it's in their purview. For example, Mr. Obama, we specifically talked to him face to face. He said, what are you going to do about the discrimination? What are you going to do about how guys are being pushed around because of federal subsidies? And he said fathers' rights is a state, he indicated us in his statement that fathers' rights is a state issue. And then he turned around, and that's a man who claims to be African American, and the African Americans 50 years ago were subjugated under the same thing. They were told that African American civil rights were a state issue, don't bother me at the federal level. But then he turned right around the same speech, and he says that women's pay gap, which isn't even a real pay gap, but that's a whole nother story, but they say the women's pay gap, women's rights, that's a federal issue. So women's rights is a federal issue, men's rights doesn't matter, that's a state issue. That's a politician doing the two-step on you. I have no respect for Mr. Obama.
It's the Obama-Rama?
Yeah, Hussein Obama, okay? But the point is that, again, why did you get screwed over in court? You got screwed over in court because of the federal subsidies. When you walk into the courtroom, the only thing that judge sees is dollar bills. He's not voting against you. First of all, there'll be 4,000 guys today, before the end of close of business today, that will walk into courtrooms in this country and get robbed. There's 25 million of us in this country, and the vast percentage of the time it's men. The judges rule against men. When they actually make a ruling, it's against men 97% of the time. The 3% of the time they give the man to custody is because the wife is either in a wooden box, in a concrete cage, or in a rubber room. But the point is that judges, if a woman walks in a courtroom, she's going to walk out with custody of kids. And further, even if the woman is incapacitated, the judges would rather give the custody to an in-law or outlaw or a homosexual adoptive couple. The judge will give custody to anybody on planet Earth out of 6 billion people except for the biological dad. The reason is they don't make any money when they give the children to the dad. When they give the children to dad, dad takes them, dad takes care of them. There's no money being exchanged with the government. If they take the kids from the dad and they make the dad a non-custodial parent, they won't give them 50-50 either, because if they both have equal income, husband and wife, there's no money on the table. They take the children from the dad, they give them to anybody else in the world, and then they want to charge dad's child support. Now, if the dad walks up for the best interest of children and hands the kid $1,000, doesn't count, because they don't care about the best interest of children. The money gets cycled through the state, then they notify the federal government that they collected $1,000 from this no good dad who don't love his kids, don't care about his kids, ain't no good, never was no good, never will be no good. So we forced him to give $1,000. They report it to the state, so they take $1,000 off of you and give it to your ex, and then the federal government reimburses the local counties based on all monies collected in child support. So and the default rate for women is twice as high as men, and the rates of child support is very, very low for men. So women. So therefore, it's not financially lucrative to make slaves out of women, more so to make slaves out of men. That is why you got screwed over in court. You walk in that courtroom, they're going to take the children away from you 97% of the time. And then further, about 10% of the time, the women will abdicate the children to the dad because the guy's on drugs, or he's a brat, or he doesn't want to listen, or the new boyfriend of the week doesn't like the kid, and so they just give up the kid. And generally, the dads don't charge the exes a child support, and not the government wouldn't support it anyhow or fight for it. So the actual custody rates in America are roughly around 13%. But I don't look to that. I look to what the judges actually rule. And they rule against men 97% of the time because they make hundreds of millions of dollars in child support collection reimbursements. Now, that money doesn't come out of thin air. That money comes out of U.S. Code 42, Title 4D, subsection 666. That money comes out of the Social Security funding. That would be your money. 12% of everybody in this country are money's being garnered off people every single day, and it's being thrown into the Social Security lockbox. There's no lockbox. And then they're taking those monies and they're reimbursing the counties out of Social Security funding. So in essence, everybody is paying the price for what they're doing to the dads. They just don't realize it. They'll realize it when they think they're going to retire and they think they're going to collect child support, or they think they're going to be collecting Social Security. Ain't going to happen. Social Security's been bankrupt a long time, and with about another 10 years, it isn't even going to exist. Mathematically, it can't. You know, you can't just maintain artificial numbers. If you've got only so many people working and many more people retired, at some point the system collapses, and that's what's happening to the system. But it's not just collapsing because of that, it's collapsing because of these corrupt reimbursements. So understand this: if they took your child away from you in divorce court, family court, which is a court that doesn't regard for law, doesn't regard for rules of evidence, you know, they're not going to dust for prints. You know, they're just going to come in there, and some psychologist is going to say, I feel that this man might potentially be a threat to his children. So therefore, to err on the side of caution, we're going to take the children from him because he has a potential for doing wrong. Not that everybody else on the planet doesn't have potential for doing wrong. But you do have no rules of evidence. You have no, 90% of my guys never have a trial. They never have a jury. 90% of them don't have an attorney. The judge doesn't care about any of that. And then you can prove to the judge that the woman is on cocaine or the woman's a prostitute, and they'll say, well, you know what, her prostitution and bringing all these Johns over to the house, that doesn't affect her mothering skills. No, what it is they're just worried about getting that money. And she's a drug addict. Well, you know, we sent her to rehab last week. I think she's going to be okay. You know, she's still a good nurturing person. So take the children from the women, give them to the man, and make us into economic slaves. Bottom line, U.S. Code 42, Title 4D, subsection 666. The reason your children were stolen from you, they weren't taken from you. Don't tell people that they took your children. They didn't take your children. They stole your children. If you didn't get a jury trial, if you didn't have an attorney, if there were no rules of evidence, your children weren't taken from you. They were stolen. And they were stolen because the judges make hundreds of millions of dollars by robbing men. 4,000 guys a day, 25 million guys in this country. If you're going to get robbed, at least understand why you're getting robbed. My name is Tony Taylor. I'm at tony.taylor@yahoo.com. And you can find our website at www.dadscustodysupportgroup.com.
Well. Tony Taylor, an activist for Fathers for Justice and non-custodial parents in general that get screwed out of any contact with their own children just so the government can make money. I hope, if nothing else, you've gotten out of this the reason John Fleming was kept from his children while the lesbians could beat up his lesbian wife and her lovers, or violent bull-dyke lovers, could beat up his children while he was not allowed to protect his daughter or protect his children. The reason is they were hoping to get child support, but in John Fleming's case, he became totally dysfunctional, finally couldn't work at all, was living out of a shoebox. And then he gets the word, hey, come on in. John, come on in down to family court. And he's like, oh God, now what are they going to do to me? They destroyed my life. I lost my kids, my wife, the children are gone. I don't have a job. What are they going to do to me now? Throw me in jail. And then he finds out, no, they want to give him the children back. Why? Because his oldest son is slicing his wrists and threatening suicide because he doesn't want to live with violent lesbians anymore. In fact, he doesn't want to live with them, any kind of lesbians. Probably the tragedy was not John Fleming Jr., but the little girl that had to witness things that children should not witness adults engaged in doing.